Okay, this tutorial is on the pen tool. I'm going to go ahead and select the pen tool. That's this tool right here. The pen tool is a tool that is used for drawing in Illustrator, and it basically has the capacity of either creating straight lines or curved lines, or a combination of straight and curved lines to create shapes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to create straight lines first, and then how to create curved lines, and then also how to create shapes using those curved and straight lines. Okay, so to create just straight lines, what you would need to do is click, and all you're doing is just clicking once, and you move away from the point to where you want your line to be drawn. So basically, wherever you click next, it's going to draw a point. It's going to draw a line from your last point to this new point. Okay, so you move away from the point. Move away from the point, move away from the point, move away from the point. Okay? And because I have not what we call closed the shape, right now if I were to continue in my mind think that I'm going to start a new shape and I'd go over here, it's actually going to connect this shape that I drew up here, this path, with this new one. So I have to remember that I need to switch tools from this pen tool to the selection tool. So I'm just going to show you what would happen if I just kind of moved on way over here and thought I was going to create a new shape. That it just doesn't work like that. You can't just think it. See how it gets connected? So I'm going to go ahead and undo that, Control Z or Command Z on a Mac. And I'm going to go and switch to my arrow tool. And that basically lets it know that I'm done creating that path and I can click off of it. You'll notice that it creates it here. That's this one here. Okay. And now if I go back to the pen tool, I could create another similar path. Okay, so I'm going to go and click. I'm going to move away from it, click again, click again, click again. I'm going to do the same type of thing I did before. One difference is that I'm going to come down here, and to create this kind of like a mountain, I'm going to go all the way over here. And I'm going to come back to my first point that I initially drew. And I'm going to wait to see that little circle shape right next to my pen tool. That's going to tell me that if I click on this first point that I drew initially, I'm going to close the path. I'm going to close this and create a shape with it so that it's not just a line. Okay, and that's important because in Illustrator, this is actually the way we want to draw. It's not like in hand drawing where we want to create lines and then later on fill them in manually with color. It works a little bit different. We have to fill the shape with color. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close this. Okay, and now to show you the difference, I'm going to go back to my selection here. Is if I were to, after say that I'm done tracing something, if I were to want to fill it in with color, if I tried to fill this selection up with color here, this line here up with color, I would go here and select a color, hit OK, and what would happen is you'd get this kind of zigzaggy, weird kind of alternating shape. And that's because I didn't, by leaving it as a line, I didn't specify what area I wanted to fill with color. So it has no idea that I wanted this to be kind of a mountain range shape. Okay? And the reason that it's doing this is because of the shifting baselines, and because I did not specify by closing this into a shape, into a closed path, which area it is that I wanted to color in. Okay, so the difference between these two is that this one's a line and this one's a closed shape. So on this one I can't specify which area gets colored in other than what it decides to do on its own. But this one, if I were to go ahead and do the same thing and change the color on it, it would actually fill in the area as I predicted, because I have determined that I wanted that area being filled in by closing that shape and that area. Okay? So just something to remember is that as you're tracing, as you're drawing, you want to make sure you close the shapes. Okay? Now, it's fine if you forget to do the closing of the path initially. There's a way. If you go and you select your pen tool, if you go to this end point and you use that slanted, you see that slanted line next to the pen tool, you can just click on that and you can come back around, and then you could come back around, and you'll notice that as long as you wait for that little circle point, it's now connected and it's a path. See how that fixed it? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Now, the other way you can use the pen tool, I'm going to go ahead and just move these out of the way a little bit. Okay. Is that you can create curved lines with them. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my pen tool again. And I'm going to click, hold down, and drag. Notice this is different than the other one where I just clicked. This clicking and holding down and dragging is going to actually create a curved point for me, okay? And that means that it gives me these handles that allow me to make a curved line. So now as I move away, I'm going to come over here. You always want to move away from your point. Some people are always tempted to go and click on that last point that they were on or click on the handle. You don't want to do that. You want to move away from the point. And you're going to click, hold down, and drag. And I'm going to go ahead and release it. And then I'm going to click, hold down, and drag. And you notice you get this blue preview line right now. That preview line right here is basically telling me where my line would be if I were to release my anchor. Okay, so I'm just pulling, and notice that depending on whether I'm pulling a lot or whether I'm pulling a little is how that line's curve is affected, okay? Also, if I were to turn it this way, it would twist it one way, and if I were to curve it this way, it would turn it a different way, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of leave it straight up and down, and then I'm going to move away from the point. I just released it. I'm going to move away from the point. I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to drag, and basically I'm trying to create like a circle shape. Okay, and then I'm going to go to this last point, and instead of just clicking, I don't want to just click because then it's going to give me a weird kind of straight curved corner. I just want to click, hold down, and drag. And notice, I'm going to undo that, and notice that as I go right over this point, you get that little circle indicator shape, letting me know, next to my pen tool, letting me know that this is going to be a closed path, and that's good. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and pull it. Now I don't worry that it's not a perfect circle because I could always go in here and modify this using my modifier tools, which is what we're going to go over next. But also I also know that I probably wouldn't want to create a circle using my pen tool to begin with. I'm just doing this for the purposes of illustration because I do have the shape tools available to me, okay? Okay, so now I want to show you, I've shown you how to draw straight lines and then how to draw curved lines so far. I want to show you how to do a combination of both straight and curved lines. So to get both straight and curved lines, you can just click and click, and that's going to give me a straight line because I just clicked. I didn't click, hold down, and drag. I'm going to do another one that's straight. I'm going to click, and then I'm going to move away, and this one I do want to make curved. I'm actually going to make like an upside down heart. Okay, and I'm going to go here. All right, and then here for the heart, it's actually part curved, but then it comes to a peak. So instead of clicking, hold down, and dragging, which would give me a curved area here, a curved anchor, what I want to do is I'm just going to click once. Now it comes to a hard corner here, but it was curved because on this one I had that anchor. This one was a curved point. Okay, so that's a combination point there. All right, and now I can move away from this one and I can click, hold down, and drag because I want there to be an arch where that upside down heart is. Okay, and then I could come over here, and if I were just to click, it'd be a little bit off, but I'm just going to go ahead and click, hold down, and drag so that I can continue to manipulate that arch. Okay, now I don't worry that this isn't perfect because I have modifier tools. The modifier tools can be found inside this pen tool here. Okay, and we're going to go over some of these in a little bit. And then there's the direct selection arrow here. And this one has group selection and direct selection. The one that you're going to need is actually direct selection, and that's the one we're going to go over. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is if you select this direct selection arrow, you can go ahead and with this direct selection arrow, you can affect points by doing this. Okay, you can affect lines. Sometimes you have to click off of it so that you can select what it is that you're trying to select at that particular point in time. I'm going to go here and I'm going to select just this line, and you'll notice that I can move that entire line here. Okay, I'm going to undo that. you can go to one of these that has handles on it, such as this one here. And once you select the point, it'll usually show you the handles for it. You can grab the handles and you can tweak this, and you'll notice that they're kind of like this seesaw effect where one side affects the other because they're connected, they're joined points here. But you can move these around, you can tweak this, and you'll notice this one's a little bit shorter than that one. You could always grab that point and bring it down, and you could pull this out and make it a little bit fatter. And basically it's just a playing around thing to get things how you want them to be. Okay, the best way to learn the pen tool is by practicing, by testing what it does, by just going in there and experimenting. I could throw all the theory in the world out there and show you how to do it in these tutorials, but other than providing you with the basics, the way to learn this tool is to actually go and practice it, because it gives you a whole different experience when you see how the tool reacts to your pulling and pushing and stuff. Okay, so there's one other thing that I want to cover within the selection tool. I'm going to show you, probably the best example is here. Like I mentioned, when you click, hold down, and drag as you're drawing with your pen tool, what's going to happen is that you're going to get these two handles coming out of that one anchor point. Okay, and when you grab these handles, they're kind of in this teeter-totter effect where one affects the other. If you didn't want to have that happen, and let's say that you wanted to turn this into a heart, you could actually, I'm just going to grab this anchor point, I'm going to bring this down. You can hold down the Alt key, and instead of getting this teeter-totter effect, if you hold down the Alt key while you grab this handle, or this handle, whichever handle you want, I'm holding down the Alt key. See how I get that little plus sign? I'm going to click, hold down, and drag. And what happens is that it just split this anchor so that the handles are no longer dependent upon each other. And now, once you break one, you can let go of your Alt key. You should be able to manipulate the other side. Okay, so notice now we're doing a right side up part. Now, these here, they have handles, and that's why they are curved. But let's say that I didn't want them to have handles. There's these different tools that you can use, and these are your modifying tools here. If you go into the pen tool, there's this convert anchor point, and what this convert anchor point does is you can go into the curved point, and if you click on just that anchor point, it'll turn it into a corner point. Similarly here, if I went and I clicked this, it would turn it into a corner point. Now we may not want that, and you'll be like, whoops, and now, oh, do I have to redraw it again? No, you don't have to redraw it again. This tool also works in the reverse. If you have a point that you accidentally just clicked and made a corner point, but you really needed a rounded point, you could come in here with the same tool, click, hold down, and drag. Sometimes it's twisted. See right now there's this little twist right in there. You can turn this around and untwist it, and you're going to get back to your heart kind of shape. And again, this one you could click, it'll turn it into a corner point, or you can click, hold down, and drag and turn it back into a round point. Okay. Now, I had mentioned earlier that your tools all have options above here that make modifications similarly. So if you were to go into your direct selection tool and click on that, I could do the same type of thing with this direct selection tool. I could just click on, say, that point and say that I wanted to make it a curved or smooth point, they call it. You could just select that point, go up here, click it, and it's going to give you the handles, the smooth point, the curve, so that you can go and manipulate. Similarly, if you wanted to turn this back into a corner point, you could just, I'm going to click off of it so you can see, click on that point there, and I can go to the one that has the corner here and click on it. Okay, so you could do it either with your direct select tool using these options here, or you could go into the pen tool and do them in here. Okay, a lot of times when people are using these functions a lot, they want to grab this and tear it out. I just clicked on that, and that'll basically bring it out here. Sometimes when you're drawing, it's good to have these just kind of sitting out here. The same for this one. You can click, hold down on that one, and you can just click on this little tab, and it'll tear it out. And that way you can easily, instead of having to click, hold down, and dragging, accessing these in here, you can always do the tear offs, okay, so that you can have them pulled out over here on the side of your menu for easy access. Okay, now also available to you within the pen tool is the add anchor point or delete anchor point. I'm going to go ahead and select add anchor point, and notice this one gets selected here. As you scroll over the path, You can go ahead and click and you can add several points, and then with your direct selection tool you'd be able to modify those points, such as this, okay, in case you needed extra points and noticed that you were missing some. Similarly, with the delete anchor point tool, you could go in and remove existing points if you didn't want them, okay? Now, even if you didn't have the add anchor point or the delete anchor point tool selected, even if you were still on the pen tool, if you scroll over an existing point, you'll automatically get this option here. See that little minus point? To remove points, okay? Or similarly, if you just scroll over the path, you also get that option to add points, okay? So you can just click and add a point. All right, I'm going to go ahead and undo all of this. And I'm going to go and I'm going to show you just on a tracing. I'm going to go to File, Open. Okay, we have this sketch here. And going back to this using of the pen tool, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. So I'm just going to go ahead and click here. And then people would say, okay, how do I know where to click next? And basically what I like to say is wherever something changes direction, that's where you would put your next point. Okay, so I would put my next point here because this is all going up, and then here it comes to kind of like a point. So I'm going to click that. And then here it changes direction up. So I would go maybe up to here. And then I'd come back down. And then I'd go back up. Then I'd come here and go down. Then I'd come back up, down. And I'd just either click straight or click in another direction by holding down and dragging if I wanted my curve to change. Okay, so I just go click here, click here, click here, click here, move away. See how I'm just clicking everywhere where there's a change of direction, like here. Then again, I don't worry that I don't get it perfect on the first time because I know that I have these modifier tools, okay, that I could go in here and manipulate. Okay, so just remember, click and step away. What you don't want to do is, as I mentioned, that clicking mission, you don't want to go to give the illusion that, you know, you're going all the way around because you can't figure out where to put your point, because that's going to create a real jagged and ugly line. When you color it in, it's going to look pretty amateurish. It's probably better just to click, move away, and curve. It's okay to take your time. You know, you might have to work on it a little bit longer, but it's going to look a lot better. It's going to render you a better result. Okay? And we're just clicking, holding down, and dragging. Clicking, holding down, and dragging. Okay? So you don't want to do the clicking that's too close because that's going to look really jagged and ugly. You want to do more of a spaced out so you get more of this smooth type of line. Okay? All right. I'm going to go back to this. All right, so lastly, the last thing that I want to remind you of is that, one, you want to make sure that you always close the shapes, okay? Even if you just want something to look like a mountain and it already appears to look like a mountain, because you will eventually have to fill everything with color, you want to make sure that you close a shape, okay? The other thing that I want to remind you of is that eventually, even though right now you are using outlines to draw, you want to remember that when we draw in Illustrator and once we color everything in, we're eventually going to delete, as in remove all of the outlines, okay? By selecting the object, going to the stroke color here, and clicking on none so that we get rid of all of those. And what you'll notice is that professional illustrators do not use outlines on their work. We're going to take a look at one example really quick so you get a sense for that, okay? All right, so if we go in here, none of these paths have outlines around them. As they get colored in, those are going to be removed. Okay, I'm going to go over here. And even her eyes that appear to be outlines or that one would think might be just an outline, they're actual shapes that are filled with color. Okay, see? No outline, it's a shape. It goes and it comes all the way around. Okay? Okay, so that concludes your lesson on the pen tool. Let me know if you have any questions on it. I can be reached at iled@hawaii.edu or 808-343-9565.